Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance. Today, we begin something very important. Because Oya is about to take another step forward in power, and if you already thought she was dangerous before, then get ready, because her relics are arriving, and they could change the way many battles are played. Oya has already earned her place as one of the most explosive and feared heroes in Hero Wars Alliance. Fast, aggressive, relentless, and built to punish anyone who underestimates her. But relics are never just about adding a little more strength. The real question is always deeper than that. Do these relics simply improve what Oya already does well? Or do they push her into a completely new level? That's what we're going to discover together. In this video, we'll go relic by relic, skill by skill, and break down exactly what is changing, what it means in real battles, and why players who face shield-heavy or defensive teams should be paying very close attention right now. So Guardians, get ready, because this is only the beginning of Oya's next evolution. And it looks dangerous. Now let's begin with the very first relic upgrade, and this one immediately tells us something important about the direction the developers want to take with Oya. The skill is called Predator Bite. At maximum level, this ability deals physical damage that scales directly with Oya's physical attack. But what makes this relic particularly interesting is not just the raw damage value. The real strength comes from how the ability interacts with shielded enemies. Every 10 seconds, Oya attacks the nearest enemy and all enemies that currently have shields active. Think about that for a moment. This is not just a single target strike. This is a periodic ability that constantly scans the battlefield for enemies hiding behind shields. And when it finds them, it punishes them directly. In the current state of the game, shields are everywhere. Many teams rely heavily on defensive layers to survive bursts of damage. Heroes that provide barriers, shields, or protective mechanics are extremely common, especially in defensive compositions. What this relic does is give Oya a built-in answer to that strategy. Every 10 seconds, she essentially reminds shield-based teams that hiding behind protection is not always safe. And that changes the rhythm of the fight. Because this attack doesn't depend on ultimate timing. It doesn't require a specific trigger from Oya. It simply happens periodically, applying pressure again and again during the battle. The moment shields appear on the battlefield, Oya gains additional targets. And this is where the design becomes very clever. Instead of forcing Oya to wait for an ultimate ability to punish shields, the relic introduces constant background pressure. Shield users no longer feel comfortable stacking defensive layers because Oya will keep striking them regardless. So in practical terms, what does this mean in real fights? It means that teams relying on shield mechanics, heroes that protect their allies with barriers or temporary defenses, suddenly have a new problem to deal with. Oya becomes a natural shield hunter. Every 10 seconds she strikes again, applying damage to the closest enemy while also punishing those hiding behind protection. And even though the numbers might not look enormous at first glance, the real value comes from repetition. 10 seconds in Hero Wars battles pass very quickly. Which means this relic ability will activate multiple times during longer fights. And each activation adds pressure, slowly weakening defensive setups and forcing opponents to rethink how they protect their team. So already with the first relic upgrade we can see the philosophy behind Oya's evolution. She is not just becoming stronger. She is becoming more specialized. More focused on breaking through defensive mechanics. More capable of punishing shield-based strategies. And this is only the beginning. Because as we move to the next relic upgrades, the interaction between Oya and shield mechanics becomes even more dangerous. So Guardians, let's move forward and look at the next relic improvement, because things start escalating very quickly from here. Now Guardians, things start getting much more serious once we reach Relic Level 10, because this is where Oya's ultimate ability receives its first upgrade. The skill we're talking about here is Shieldbreaker. And if you've already fought against Oya before, you know this ability is not something you want to underestimate. At its core, Shieldbreaker is a powerful physical attack that strikes the closest enemy while also damaging enemies that have been marked. But the Relic upgrade introduces something that changes how this ability interacts with defensive teams. Once the Relic reaches level 10, 75% of the skill's damage is now also dealt to all shielded enemies. Let that sink in for a moment. What this means is that shields are no longer a safe place to hide. Normally, when teams rely on shields, the goal is simple: absorb incoming damage and buy time for the team to stabilize. Shields act like a temporary layer of protection that allows heroes to survive bursts that would normally eliminate them. But with this Relic upgrade, those shields suddenly become a weakness. Instead of simply protecting enemies, they now turn those heroes into additional damage targets. When Oya uses Shieldbreaker, the main target still receives the full force of the attack. But at the same time, every enemy hiding behind a shield receives 75% of that damage as well. So the moment shields appear on the battlefield, Oya suddenly gains multiple victims. And that completely changes the pressure she creates during fights. Instead of focusing damage on a single enemy, her ultimate now spreads destruction across the battlefield whenever shield mechanics are involved. Think about how many teams rely on shields today. Defensive tanks. Protective supports. Heroes that provide temporary barriers to keep the team alive during dangerous moments. All of those strategies become significantly more risky when Oya is present. Because the moment a shield appears, it can turn into a damage amplifier instead of a defense tool. And this is where the synergy with the first relic becomes very clear. Predator Bite was already punishing shielded enemies every 10 seconds. Now Shieldbreaker turns those same shields into additional targets for one of Oya's most powerful attacks. So instead of protecting enemies, shields begin to attract damage. And in fast-paced fights, that can create extremely chaotic situations. You might see Oya strike the front line. But suddenly damage appears across multiple heroes in the back line as well. All because they tried to hide behind protection. This is the kind of design that doesn't just increase numbers. It changes behavior. Players who normally rely heavily on shields may suddenly need to rethink their strategy when Oya enters the battlefield. And remember, this is only the first improvement, Shieldbreaker. As we move further into the relic upgrades, Oya's interaction with shield mechanics becomes even more brutal. So Guardians, let's continue moving forward, because the next relic upgrade pushes this concept even further and makes Oya even more terrifying for defensive teams. And Guardians, if you thought things were already dangerous at relic level 10, wait until you see what happens once Oya's relic reaches level 20. Because this is where the next ability receives its upgrade, Overwhelming. Now, before we talk about the relic improvement itself, we need to remember what this skill already does in battle. Overwhelming is one of Oya's most aggressive abilities. When activated, she unleashes a rapid sequence of 3 strikes against the enemy, and each hit becomes stronger than the previous one. The damage ramps up quickly, and the final strike can already be extremely punishing if Oya's physical attack is high. But that's not all. Enemies protected by shields already receive a portion of the skill's damage, even if they are standing behind the main target. So even before the relic upgrade, this ability was already designed to pressure defensive formations and punish teams hiding behind protective barriers. But once the relic reaches level 20, this skill gains an additional mechanic that changes the fight in a very important way. Now, every single hit of overwhelming burns 200 energy from all shielded enemies. Let's think about what that means in practice. Overwhelming strikes 3 times in rapid succession. That means shielded enemies can suddenly lose hundreds of energy points almost instantly if they are caught in the attack. And in hero wars, energy is everything. Energy is what allows heroes to unleash their ultimate abilities. It's the fuel that powers the most dangerous moments in battle. Without energy, there are no ultimates. Without ultimates, many heroes lose their strongest impact. So what Oya is doing here is not just dealing damage. She is interrupting momentum. When shielded enemies get hit by overwhelming at relic level 20, their energy pool begins to disappear. Their ultimates get delayed, their timing breaks, and the entire rhythm of the opposing team can collapse. Imagine a situation where a team is preparing to unleash multiple ultimates at the same moment, a coordinated burst designed to turn the fight. But just before those abilities activate, Oya strikes. 3 hits. Energy burned. Suddenly those ultimates are delayed. Or even completely prevented. And the fight shifts. This is what makes the relic system so interesting. These upgrades are not only about increasing numbers. They introduce mechanics that change how battles unfold. And Oya's relic upgrades clearly follow a very specific philosophy. They punish shields. They punish defensive playstyles. And they disrupt enemy momentum. Predator Bite constantly pressures shielded enemies. Shieldbreaker spreads damage across shielded targets. And now Overwhelming begins draining the very energy that powers those defensive teams. So if an opponent tries to hide behind shields, they are now dealing with 3 different problems at the same time. They take additional damage. They become extra targets for Oya's abilities. And they begin losing energy that would normally allow them to fight back. That combination can make fights spiral out of control very quickly. And Guardians, we are not done yet. Because there is still one final relic upgrade, and it might be the most brutal one of all. So let's move forward to the final relic stage, where Oya's relic reaches its maximum level and unlocks its ultimate mechanic. Now Guardians, we reach the final stage of Oya's relic progression. Relic level 30 introduces a completely new ability, Huntress Fury. This relic effect immediately grants a 20% increase to Oya's damage, which already represents a significant boost for a hero whose entire kit revolves around aggressive physical pressure. With this increase, every one of her abilities becomes more dangerous, especially when combined with the physical attack scaling that already defines her playstyle. But the true mechanic of Huntress Fury goes far beyond a simple damage bonus. The relic introduces a new interaction with one of the core mechanics we've already been discussing throughout all of Oya's relic upgrades, enemy shields. Each time a shield is applied to an enemy, Oya's current damage increases. This increase lasts for 12 seconds, meaning that during fights where shields appear frequently, Oya can repeatedly gain temporary damage boosts. In practice, this means defensive mechanics can start to work against the enemy team. Heroes that rely on shielding themselves or their allies are no longer simply protecting the team, they may actually be increasing Oya's offensive pressure. And the mechanic becomes even more impactful when shields are applied to multiple heroes at once. If a shield is applied to the entire enemy team, the effect of Huntress Fury triggers once for every hero receiving that shield. In a full team shield scenario, that means Oya can gain multiple damage increases at the same moment. So a single defensive ability that shields the whole team could potentially trigger 5 separate damage boosts for Oya. This interaction reinforces the pattern we've seen across all of her relic upgrades. Her abilities consistently punish shield mechanics. Predator Bite attacks shielded enemies directly. Shieldbreaker spreads damage to shielded targets. Overwhelming burns energy from shielded enemies. And now Huntress Fury converts shields into additional damage amplification for Oya. The more shields appear during the fight, the more opportunities Oya has to increase her damage output temporarily. In battles where defensive teams rely heavily on shielding mechanics, this relic upgrade can allow Oya's damage to scale very quickly during key moments of the fight. So Guardians, after looking at all the relic upgrades one by one, the big question now is simple. What do these relics really do for Oya? And the honest answer is actually quite clear. These relics do not reinvent Oya. They don't introduce completely new mechanics that change how she plays. Instead, what they do is reinforce the identity she already had. Oya was already designed to punish shields. That was always part of her role on the battlefield. She was already dangerous against defensive teams, already capable of putting pressure on heroes hiding behind protection. What these relics do is take that idea and push it further. Predator Bite keeps constant pressure on shielded enemies. Shieldbreaker spreads damage when shields appear. Overwhelming starts draining energy from shielded targets. And Huntress Fury turns shields into additional damage for Oya. So instead of changing the hero completely, the relics make her even better at the job she already had. And that's actually an important distinction. Because relics are not small upgrades. They are long-term investments in hero wars. They require time, resources, and planning, and most players cannot upgrade every relic for every hero. So the most important thing is always to build smart. If Oya is already part of your teams, if you already rely on her as a shieldbreaker and frontline pressure hero, then these relic upgrades will absolutely make her stronger and more consistent in that role. But if you were expecting a relic that completely transforms the hero or introduces a totally new mechanic, that's not really what we see here. What we see is something different. A focused improvement that sharpens her strengths instead of changing her identity. And honestly, Guardians, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the best upgrades are the ones that simply make a hero more reliable at what they already do well. Now the real test will come once these relics start appearing in real battles across Dominion. We'll see how Oya performs against the many defensive strategies that exist in the current meta, and whether shield-heavy teams begin to feel that extra pressure. So I'm very curious to hear what you think. Do you believe these relics will make Oya significantly stronger in the meta? Or do you see them as solid improvements to a hero who was already performing well? Let me know in the comments, Guardians. Stay tuned, stay sharp. And as always, salute and friendship.